Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I want to talk about the cash flow management. So if you are using the Business Central on-premise version, like what I'm connecting right now, I'm connected to the Dynamics 365 Business Central, but this is on-premise version. If you go to your departments and the financial management, click on cash flow, then you will see the whole module for the cash flow management. So this will give you an overview of what you have under this cash flow module. And you have the cash flow forecast and chart of cash flow accounts, and you can enter the manual revenues or manual expenses for cash flow. And you have the cash flow worksheet, and you have all these reports and the cash flow ledger entries. And so you can do the cash flow setup before you continue with your chart of accounts. So usually you set up your chart of cash flow accounts, because when you do this cash flow setup, then you are required to enter those cash flow account you set up in the cash flow chart of account. Okay, so that's for the on-premise version, but if you are using the Business Central online, and it's better you just switch your role to the accountant role. After you switch to the accountant role, if you click on this menu button, then you can see a list of what modules are available under this role. So if you are using other role, then this cash flow management section may not be available to you. But if you switch to the accountant role, then you will see the cash flow section here, which is under the cash management. You have the cash flow forecast, chart of cash flow accounts, cash flow manual revenues, cash flow manual expenses. But it seems like you don't have all these reports, and you don't have all these reports related to the cash flow accounts. You may find them in another like you may go to a specific like cash flow forecast chart of accounts, then you can go to the report to find those reports as well. But it's not listed under this menu. Okay, so it's hidden. It's kind of hidden. So yeah, that's why I prefer to use this on-premise version to do this demo. And so let's first start from what is cash flow. What is cash flow forecast? I have a screenshot which is taken from the Microsoft official documents for how the cash flow module is structured. So I think you can see it clearly. You start from a cash flow forecast source, and the source can come from a general ledger and purchasing or sales area, and also it can come from the service or can come from the fixed asset. So mostly from the general ledger, it will provide information about your liquid funds available and the budget of the general ledger account. And then for the purchasing, it will provide your like open payables and the forecasted debt from the open purchase orders. And for sales, for the sales area, it provides information for like the open receivables and the forecasted receipt for your open sales orders. And the service area, it provides information like the open purchase order, the open service order lines that can bring you the cash flow. And also for the fixed assets, it will provide, it just have a projection of the projected disposals and future asset purchase budgeted for all those information. And then from your cash forecast source, you use the suggest cash flow forecast worksheet to calculate from these sources, and then you predict what is the future cash flow looks like, and then you can register your cash flow forecast. It will create a cash flow ledger entries. Okay, and then you can save those cash flow ledger entries. Those will be registered under your cash flow account you have a cash flow chart of account, and you can register those cash flow ledger entries under each cash flow account. And so also you have to, so also we started from the cash flow source, and also you have to do some basic cash flow forecast setup to link like which account the receivable, payable, they will register to in your cash flow chart of account. And then after you save your cash flow entries, then you will generate the cash flow forecast reports or some forecast charts. Those charts also indicate like some like visuals, tells you the trend of the cash flow, and you can use the analysis by dimensions to analyze your cash flow. Also, you have a account schedule for cash flow. It's using the same structure of your chart of account schedule. And you have the cash flow. You can export the cash flow to the Excel spreadsheet to do further analysis. Yeah, so this is a structure of how this module is designed. So if we go back to our Business Central, then we can start from the, if you go to, we just start from this list. So you can have a cash flow forecast setup. You can have multiple cash flow forecast setup for different purpose. And so that's just take this default one I created, okay? This default one is created by this demo database. So you can give a description, a cash flow for like, right now we are already in the 2020. I can change this to cash flow for 2020, okay? And then you can consider the discount. So when you calculate your cash flow, if you want to consider the discount, so discount will be the discount from the transaction header. And also if you want to consider the payment discount tolerance date, so if you want to consider those, because the tolerance date, like somebody delayed the payment, but the discount, no, for the payment discount, usually you give it, if let's say you give 10 days for the customer, if the, like you have a payment term, like if the customer pay it in 10 days, then you provide a discount of 30% discount. But if the customer didn't pay it in 10 days, for example, they paid it in 15 days, and so that 5 days already exceeded your 10 days for the payment discount of 30%. Then if you still want to give that customer that 30% discount, so this actual 5 days is that payment discount tolerance date. So for the cash flow, usually you do the forecast based on two factors. One is the amount, one is the time. The time is the due date that you consider, right? So this payment discount tolerance date is the other consideration for the date, right? And this consider the discount is the consideration for the amount. So you want to consider like both the date and amount, but if you don't want to consider the discount and this date, then you can uncheck the checkbox. It's just your decision if you want to take these into consideration. And also you can consider the payment tolerance amount. So for example, if the customer paid you in check, and the total amount is $100, right? And if the customer paid it short, they only paid you like $95, and there's $5 difference. So do you want to write off this difference for the $5 or not? That's the payment tolerance. So if you want to consider that tolerance amount into your cash flow calculation, so it depends on your company policies. If you want to give tolerance to the customer, if you want to set up the payment tolerance, to in your system or not, right? Not every company set up the tolerance, but if you do set it up, then if you want to consider it in your cash flow. That tolerance amount may not be like a large amount, but accumulated from a large base of customers or vendors, then that tolerance could be a big amount. So I'm using the sales side as an example, but for the purchase side, it's the same thing. You have the purchase when you pay your vendor, so you also have the payment tolerance amount for the payment you make. And consider the cash flow payment terms. So you can consider this. It depends on, like, for example, if on the customer card, so I'm gonna use a customer as example. On the customer card, then you have the payment terms. So the payment terms is used to calculate your due date, because the due date in Business Central is calculated by your document date plus your payment terms equals to your due date. So let's take this customer as example. The payment terms code is 10 days. But so the due date will be your document date plus 10 days. But let's say the customer always delay the payment. So your receivable will be delayed, and they always, like, based on the history, the customer usually the average delay of the payment is 30 days. So actually, you receive your cash like 30 days after your due date. So it's not on the due date and 30 days after your due date. In order to have a forecast, in order to have a forecast more accurate, then you may want to use the cash flow payment terms code instead of the payment terms code to calculate your cash flow. So 10 days, but they always delay it, and it will be like it will be 45 days. So yeah, let's make, because I don't have 45 days here, let's say the customer always delay it for 50 days. So then after this due date, then they delay it for another 50 days, right? So then you will select 60 days. You will use this instead of your payment terms. You will use the cash flow payment terms instead of your payment terms to forecast your cash receivable. So in that case, then if we go back to our cash flows, then we will want to consider the cash flow payment terms, because most of the customers, they always delay it for like that example is 50 days. Then on the customer card, I will set up that cash flow payment terms for each customer and use that date to estimate, to forecast my cash flow. Yeah, so then I will have this checkbox checked and show in chart on row center. So on the row center, if you want to show this cash flow forecast, then you can have this checkbox checked. So the manual payment is what it's talking about is like in the cash flow, you can enter the manual revenues and manual expenses, like to record larger amount of revenues and expenses you expect. Then this manual payment is about that. So if you want to include those manual revenue into your cash flow forecast, you can put the start date and end date here. And also if you want to, so for all the calculations like open ledger entries, if the due date, the overdue date is after the work date, if you want to move the overdue cash flow dates to the current work date, like you are running the cash flow. So you can have this checkbox checked, and it's using the work date you are suggest. So like today, if you run the cash flow worksheet, then when you suggest the cash flow, then if you want all the overdue date to move to today's date, then you can have this checkbox checked. So for the default GL budget name, if you already have some budget set up, then you can select a budget. I'm going to use, because this date, this is a demo database, it's only using the future date, so I will select the 2021 as the date here. So that's how you set up a cash flow focus card. After you set it up, then you can run this cash flow worksheet from this cash flow forecast card. So you can see this cash flow worksheet under both home and actions. And then after you posted this, the entries in the cash flow worksheet, it will generate the cash flow ledger entries. Then you can see it from the entries here. Okay. And also you can take a look of the cash flow availability by periods after you calculate the cash flow forecast. So that's just to use that as an example, because if you look at my chart of cash flow accounts, right now I haven't calculated anything, so all the amount shows 0. This chart of cash flow accounts is different from your chart of account. It's kind of like a high-level summary of the cash account from your chart of account. But you can use your own another number series other than the number series in your chart of account. Okay, so but you can structure it like a begin total, end total, and also posting accounts similar like begin total, end total, and entry similar like your chart of account. And cash flow revenues and expenses, like you can, if you expect large cash flow revenues or expenses, you can manually enter them here. And then you can include them. We already include them in the cash flow forecast by selecting the checkbox. And then this is a cash flow worksheet. You can access the cash flow worksheet from this cash flow forecast as well. You may have multiple forecasts, and under each cash flow forecast, you can run the cash flow worksheet. And the account schedule is similar, and analysis by dimensions, these are the similar with the general ledger account, so I won't review them. I'm gonna use this cash flow forecast I already set up as an example, then calculate the cash flow. So I go to my cash flow worksheet and then click on suggest worksheet lines, and I can select this forecast worksheet, and so I can check the checkbox for what source types I want to calculate from. So actually I want to calculate all the source types. Okay, and I'm gonna use this for all taxes, container forecast, group by document type. And then I just leave everything else not filled in. I don't need to fill in any filter, then click on OK. That will calculate my cash flow forecast. And after it's got calculated, then you can see which one is overdue, which one is not, right? And if you in your cash flow, when you set up this cash flow forecast, if you have the checkbox like move overdue cash flow dates to work dates set up, and after you calculate, then those dates which says overdue will be changed to your work date. Let's see what is my work date. So my work date is September the 12th. So you could see those overdue ones has already been changed to my work date. Everything is as my work date. So this one is not overdue. So this one is not changed to my work date because it's not overdue. But everything which is overdue, then it changed to my work date. But this is not overdue, but the original date is the work date as well. So that's why it didn't move it to the work date. Okay, but all these invoices, it just move the overdue date to the work date, because when we set up that cash flow forecast card, we selected move overdue date to the work date. Okay, so if you are satisfied with everything on this cash flow worksheet, then you can just register it, and everything is registered successfully. Okay, then after it's registered, then they will disappear from the cash flow worksheet. And now if you go to your cash flow chart of cash flow accounts, then you will see some data there. So previously I have everything shows at 0 because I didn't register any cash flow yet. Now I have some data there. Okay, then you can, like what you see in the chart of account, you can click on this amount to see the cash flow ledger entries posted. Okay. So after you have the cash flow ledger entries, then you can run the cash flow report. So we can run this cash flow date list report, because this is the Kronos demo database. It only asked me to use a future date. My current work date was in September. It was on September 12th, 2021. So I'm going to use that current work date. So you can check that from here. So my current work date is September 12th, 2021. So I'm gonna use that work date to calculate my cash flow date list. So I put number of intervals as 12 because I'm gonna use 1 month as an interval length, and then I only have one cash flow. Cash flow forecast card. So that's the one I already set up for 2020. So then I'm just I will not filter by that number. I will just preview. Then I have some data on this cash flow report. So yeah, so I think that's everything I want to share in this video. And basically, the cash flow is for you to forecast your AR, AP, and the liquid funds. And so everything you could see when you run the cash flow worksheet. So everything you can see on the suggest worksheet lines is what you are calculating in your cash flow forecast. It's calculating your liquid funds, receivables, sales orders, service orders, fixed assets disposal, cash flow menu avenues, payables, purchase orders, fixed asset budget, cash flow menu expenses, and GL budget, jobs, taxes. So it's calculating all those items. So as a summary of this video, the cash flow module is for you to forecast your future cash flow. And so then you can, based on your cash flow history, the receivable, payable, liquid funds, all those history, then we can do a forecast. And based on this forecast, you can plan your company investment or expenses more properly as your cash flow projection, because cash flow is the most important for any business. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope to see you guys again next time.